So on the left here, we have the iPad mini, and on the right we have the Nexus 7. And we're going to go look through some key elements that both tablets have, see which one has the edge when it comes to the 7-inch or thereabouts tablet of choice, the small tablet of choice. So let's get on with it. The design of the iPad mini, it elicits a sense of quality, and it's really sturdy and it's really nicely put together. I mean, of course, most Apple products are. Okay, on the front you have this huge 7.9-inch display. I say huge relatively speaking because it is significantly larger than the Nexus 7, which is a true 7-inch tablet. But yeah, so you have this nice big 7.9-inch display, and despite the size overall, you can still hold it in one hand without too much trouble, which is really good. And Apple have also designed the keyboard when you're using it to split for that as well. Other than that, you have the standard FaceTime camera here, the home button here. The back is a really nice metal finish with very rounded corners. It's a lot more rounded than, say, the current iPhone with its aesthetic. But there are still elements like the chamfer here, down the edge, the chamfer, and of course on the bottom here we have Apple's new Lightning connector. So it is very much a new iPad in that respect. Now the Nexus 7 approaches the design from a slightly different angle. It doesn't opt for metal body and quite as premium materials, partly as a means of saving costs, but it also still has a really nice feel in its own right. Naturally, the display is slightly smaller at 7 inches. There's not really any other controls because all the Android buttons, the Android interface is all on screen. So there's less going on the front, so it's very minimalist. As you can see, this nice black glass. And the only thing you can really see is the front-facing camera at the top here. On the side, you have a silver plastic strip which borders the entire tablet. There's also dock connectors here, so there's room for accessories. And on the back, you have this soft touch plastic with I don't know if you can see that slight patterning there. It gives it a really nice, smooth, comfortable feel in the hand. It's actually light. It's actually softer and it's nicer to hold than the iPad in that respect. Connector on the bottom, headphone jack, and a speaker bar at the back there. Now the largest 7.9-inch display on the iPad mini here is technically a blessing and a curse. It's great that you can still have a larger display and still be able to hold the tablet in one hand. That's a really nice advantage. But at the same time, the lower resolution, Apple didn't endow this with a Retina display. It's actually using the same resolution display as the iPad 2. So it's using a 1024 by 768 screen, which doesn't have the same pop and finish that you'd expect from other Apple products currently available. And of course, the Nexus 7 here, which actually uses a 1280 by 800 7-inch display. So it's smaller and higher resolution, which means that the pixels are smaller, the resolution is sharper, everything looks crisper, and also in comparison between the two, colours just look more vibrant. The UI is still fundamentally the same. In some ways it's bad, in some ways it's good. It is a very good UI to begin with. Ease of operability and the ease of being able to pick it up without understanding the interface beforehand. It's got a very nice pick up and play feel. But some users may find that a bit limiting in how it operates. And obviously new features have been included over time, things like the notifications bar I just showed you, and things like that. But at the end of the day, there's not a lot of new functionality that's been added. Now, in comparison, the Nexus 7 that I have here actually received its Jelly Bean 4.2 update today. Jelly Bean has definitely been the most refined version of Android to date, and this one adds a whole host of new functionality that's really nice to see. As well as the standard lock screen, you get things like you can add new lock screen widgets, so you can have your email or your calendar on your lock screen without having to open the app or unlock the device. If I just unlock the device here, there's also now, you have your standard notifications thing, but you also have, if you drag on this side of the device, on the right side of the device, you have quick settings now as well. Another thing that Apple and iOS lack is being able to quickly jump to settings without third-party applications. So fundamentally, Android has a lot more flexibility, and of course there are folders like iOS, but there's also widgets like we have here, so you can actually customize with certain features from apps or from services that the Nexus 7 offers that you just can't do on an iOS device. In terms of connectivity and storage, both have a very similar setup, although the iPad does seem to have a few more options. With regards to internal storage, you can get 16, 32 or 64 gigabytes, whilst the Nexus 7 is available. It used to be available in 8 and 16, but then there's been a price shift and there's been a new model announced, so you can now get this in either 16 or 32 gigabytes, so there's no 64 gig option for the Android-based tablet here. There is, of course, also 3G and LTE support in the UK for the iPad mini, which is coming soon. This is currently the 3G, the Wi-Fi only model, but the 3G, 4G LTE model is coming to the UK very soon. The 3G model of the Nexus 7 just launched yesterday, and so they both now have a mobile connected option. In terms of internal storage, we talked about onboard memory, but both companies also offer cloud storage. Both have various kind of ranges of storage options you can go for, and it depends how much money you want to put behind it. iCloud, of course, syncs all of your apps, all of your documents, all of your photos. You get 5 gigabytes free with your Apple account, your Apple ID, and you can buy more in various sizes. I believe it's 10, 20 and 50 gigs. You can also use Google Drive, which is specifically for documents and applications like that, Word, PowerPoint and Excel equivalent documents. And that comes with 5 gigabytes of free storage, just like iCloud, and you can again pay more to get more storage. Also, both tablets do offer Bluetooth. However, the Nexus 7 does have a slight edge as it has NFC built in, so you can tap to share between other Android devices, and you can also pair it using NFC with Bluetooth accessories like speakers and headphones and things like that. Both, as you can see, if I swipe around here, they're both very fast. They're actually pretty equal in terms of user interface functionality. Performance-wise, the Apple iPad mini here is actually running the Apple A5X chip, which featured it in the iPhone 4S. It's a dual-core chip, and so you would assume that performance would not be as sharp as the Asus Google Nexus 7 here, which is actually running a quad-core NVIDIA Tegra 3 chip with a slightly higher clock speed as well, I believe. I'll put them like this. Okay, so both tablets have loaded to the main menu, so we're just going to hit the campaign button. The iPad mini actually loaded this heavy-duty 3D game faster than the Nexus 7, which is still loading. And this is a quad-core device, this is a dual-core device. It shows that in terms of app optimization, I think that's where Apple have the edge. Their apps seem to be much better optimized, whereas Android apps, it's trickier because there are so many different devices that apps have to work on. You can see that the iPad mini is actually a much smoother frame rate as well. And if I look up at the fire in this building here, certain effects just aren't featured. The optimization is much greater. There's no fire on the Nexus 7 here, whereas you can see on the iPad mini. So lots of work has gone into making apps run super smooth on technically older hardware of the iPad mini. So I think the iPad mini kind of takes the edge when it comes to performance with greater app support, and the apps are just better quality typically. So I've taken you through the main differences and similarities between the iPad mini and the Google Nexus 7 by Asus. And I don't know what you brought away from it, but I think, in my personal opinion, that the iPad mini actually pips it to the post. Meanwhile, the Nexus 7, although it doesn't have quite the same app optimization, it does have that superior hardware that you might find certain applications do run better. It's subjective to the app, so it's tricky to always say this one is better, this one is better. Another massive thing is that Apple offer typically 2 years of support for their devices. Google have already updated this once, but they'll likely offer 2 more significant updates to the operating system on the Nexus 7, so it will have better support for longer. So it will technically probably be the longer lasting tablet out of the 2 in terms of getting new functionality, better software performance and more refined user experience. The other key thing you have to remember is the price. The iPad mini is significantly more expensive than the Nexus 7. You can get the cheapest Nexus 7, the 16GB version, for £159 for the Wi-Fi only. This is the 32GB Wi-Fi only model. This is £199. And you can get the full Wi-Fi 3G option, which also has 32 gigs, for £239. So even the top end Nexus 7 is still cheaper than the lowest version of the iPad mini, and that is a significant sell-up for this tablet. This is going to make it much more tangible to the consumer looking for a small tablet, because the iPad mini starts at $269 for the Wi-Fi only 16 gig, then $349 for the 32 gig, and finally $429 for the 64GB option. I mean, of course, it is worth noting that there is that 64GB option that the Nexus just doesn't have. And if you add £100 to each of those prices for the 3G, 4G version, you can go anywhere up to £529 for an iPad mini. So it really depends on which user experience you prefer and how big your wallet is. Aside from that, they are very evenly matched. They just have different strengths and weaknesses in different areas, and it is really up to you to decide which tablet you think you prefer.